is all about mid-segments of triangles. Tell me what you would expect a mid-segment to be. A segment in the middle, mid-segment, okay? That is what a mid-segment is. So here's how it works. If I find a midpoint, right? If we're looking at this triangle and I find a midpoint, meaning those are congruent, and then I find a midpoint over here, meaning these are congruent, the mid-segment is the segment that joins those midpoints. So this AB is a mid-segment of this triangle, okay? How many mid-segments in a triangle?
4.
There's 3. 1, 2, 3, okay? So a mid-segment of a triangle is a segment that joins the midpoints of 2 sides of the triangle. Okay, so you'll find 2 midpoints, you will connect them, make a segment, and you'll get a mid-segment. One thing I want you to notice here is when this happens, this mid-segment AB is parallel to the other side of the triangle. Okay, so that's the first thing. It is parallel to the third side every time. Because of that, because they will be parallel, you'll see angles like those or angles like those. What kind of angles are those called? Corresponding. Corresponding angles are congruent when lines are parallel. See how this all comes together? Chapter 3, chapter 4, we just kind of stick them all together and here's what we get, mid-segments. So you will have parallel lines, which means you will have corresponding angles that are congruent. And then this is the one that shows up more often. The other one is its length, not if, is half the length of the third side. So a mid-segment will be half the length of the side that it's parallel to. So for instance, if we looked up here again, if this was a length of A, then this side would be double that, 2A, okay? Because the mid-segment is half the length. So half of 2A is A, okay? So that's the relationship between those two. Maybe you want to just write down here so you keep it straight. Parallel would be like AB is parallel to YZ, or you could say BC is parallel to what segment? You could say AY. I'm going to say the whole thing, so I'm going to say XY, but it would be parallel to AY also. Okay, so you'll have segments that are parallel, but then you also have the relationship between their lengths. So you could say AB is half of YZ, or you could say AC is half of XZ. The other way you could say it is thinking of it more like I wrote it up here. That one is double the other one. So if I were going to double, I would say XY is 2 of our BC. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to think of it. Either you're doubling the shorter one or you're cutting the longer one in half, right? That would be the relationship between them. Okay, so that's really what we're going to focus on today is that idea that a mid-segment will be half as long as the side across from it, and it will be parallel to it, okay? So take a look at this. If I tell you, and we're just going to write these in, JK is 10. So this length right here is 10. DE is 6.5. And EL, that's this piece, is 3.7. Okay, so that's everything that was given to us. That's the stuff they told us is true. we should now be able to find every other piece of this triangle. Okay, let's see if we can. Can anyone tell me what KD will be?
5.
It would be 5. Notice these are congruent, right? Because this is a midpoint. So this is going to be 5 and 5. So KD would be 5 and DJ would be 5. Can anyone tell me what DF will be? 3.7, right? If this is 3.7 and this is 3.7, right? Then DF is half of the sum of that. Well, we just doubled it, 3.7 and 3.7. So this is actually by itself 3.7. So DF is 3.7. So what is JL? 7.4. That 3.7, right? We're just adding those together to get JL, the whole thing. So 7.4. All right, so what is KF? 6.5. FL would be 6.5 also. Does that make sense? All the time. Okay, so now look at it like this. Now there's just one mid-segment drawn in. Notice these are marked congruent. These are marked congruent. So this line is a mid-segment. What is the relationship between 54 and 3n?
They're equal.
They're not equal.
Oh, corresponding.
The angles would be corresponding. They're parallel. Okay, so we know these are parallel. What other relationship do they have?
3n is half of 54.
The other way.
Oh, wait, 54
Is half of 3n, right? So you can think of it, this is half of this, or you could double 54 and say it equals 3n, right? This is what always gets done wrong on these problems. You have to stop and think about what makes sense. Does it make sense to cut this in half and it equal this length? It doesn't, right? So think about what makes sense. Which one do I want to cut in half or which one do I want to double? Usually there's an easier one. I would say double. So 3n is 2 of the 54s. So 3n is 108, and then you divide by 3. What is that? 36? Can someone check my mental math on that? Is that what you got? I guess I have notes here. I could look at my notes. It's 36. Okay, so look at letter B. First of all, the markings show us that's a midpoint and a midpoint. So that is a mid-segment. What could you do to solve for n? So they're not equal, right? You have this length and you have this length. 46 is definitely longer than that n minus 9. What's the relationship? Double what?
N minus 9.
Okay, so you could either double the shorter one and set it equal to the longer one. What's your other option? Divide what?
46.
The 46 in half, right? So here's the two ways you could do this problem. Pick which one you like better. It doesn't matter. They're the same thing. You could say n minus 9 equals half of 46. Okay? You will get the same answer. Just out of curiosity, how many of you think you would do the first way? How many of you think you would do the second way? You guys are pretty split. Okay, I will try to do it in different ways just to keep it so everyone gets to see their way. This would be, if you do it this way, you got to distribute. So you would add 18 and you get 4, right? Divide by 2, so n is 32. If you do it this way, n minus 9 equals 23, and then add 9, n equals 32. So notice you will get the same answer either way. So it's up to you which one you like better. Just don't do both, okay? Don't cut the one in half and double the other because that won't make sense. Okay, take a look at this. It says in the house's roof, as shown below, find the height x of the support. So find this length if this is a roof. What do you think?
X is 1.5.
1.5, right? This is a mid-segment because these are midpoints. Okay, so if this is a mid-segment, it is a mid-segment to the side across from it. So if this is 3, then x is 1.5. You cut it in half. Okay. All right, what do you do on this letter A? Remember, you may either cut in half or you may double, but don't do both and pick the right one to do whatever you're going to do too. What would you do? Double what? Okay, so if you double the 5, then 2n minus 16 would equal 10. Could you do it a different way?
Yeah.
What would you have to do?
Divide by 5.
What?
Divide 5 by 1.
Not divide 5. Well, yes, divide 5 by a half would actually be doubling 5. You would have to cut this in half, right? So half of 2n minus 16 would be n minus 8 equal to 5. So you can do either one. I feel like this one is probably a little more likely for most, but you can do either. So if you add 16, you get 2n equals 26 and divide by 2. So n is 13. Do you know how you can check yourself on this? If you plug it in, if I plug this in here, I get 2 times 13, so 26 minus 16 is 10. Does it make sense for this segment to equal 10?
No. Oh. Yes.
Yeah, because the shorter one is half of it, 5, right? So you can't always just plug it back in and check, like, does this make sense? Okay, I'm going to skip B because I think we've done enough of these, but I'm going to do one more, this one. What would you do? I would double 8n. You could cut 6n plus 9 in half, but you're going to end up with a decimal, which is not the end of the world. You'll get there. But it just maybe isn't as nice to work with. So I would double the shorter one. So 16n, and then set that equal to the longer one, 6n plus 9. So take away the 6n, and you get 10n equals 9. What does n equal? A decimal or a fraction. What is it? 9 over 10, right? So many people mix this up when it's dividing and making a fraction. Don't divide by the 9, divide by the 10. So n is 9/10, or you could say n is 0.9. I think I would do the fraction, but if you do the decimal, it's not wrong. Questions on that? Okay. Last thing is a real world thing. It says, Dean wants to swim across the lake. How far will he swim? Use the idea of a mid-segment to think it through. There's no numbers. It's tricky. So, Dean's going to a family vacation, but his swimming coach is like, you have to swim this many miles while you're gone. All he has is this lake. How's he going to do it? With the idea of, I have a mid-segment at my disposal.
Swim until you're tired.
What?
Swim until you're tired.
Swim until you're tired. Oh, we want to know the actual length. So I want to know how far this is.
80 feet. It's about 24.
Love that you're all just throwing numbers out.
180.
So he obviously can't take like a measuring device across the lake with him. There isn't going to be a ruler, a yardstick, a tape measure that's going to make that work, right? He has no tools with him. So he's going to work on stride and stride alone. If he's just going to walk this off to figure it out, he cannot walk on water. He is not Jesus. So he's going to have to walk elsewhere. So I'm just going to point you in the right direction. What if he walks this way?
I mean, you could just.
Why?
It's just like follow the water, you know?
I would say he's going to walk, we'll say he walks to right here, and that was 35 strides for him.
Only
So how far should he walk here?
35.
Oh, another 35. That's a great idea. Because now this is a midpoint. Now he's here. Where should he go?
Like
To the end.
toward.
To the other end. Okay? Now here's the deal. Does he know what the halfway mark is yet?
No.
No, so he's just got to walk the whole thing. So he walks all the way here. And he counts it off. That was,
46.
oh, this is not drawn to scale. But these are the numbers I have. We'll go with 200.
36.
I should just make up a new set of numbers, huh? I didn't draw that to scale. He walks 236 strides to get there. What should he do?
Turn around.
Turn around and go how far?
Pretty far.
Pretty far.
35.
236.
Halfway. What would halfway be?
35. Oh, okay.
No.
Cut that in half, right? He should go back
118.
118 paces. So now you have 118 and 118, which means these are congruent. Now what should he do?
Measured on the water.
Oh.
You should go from the two
Bro, what?
midpoints.
Mm-hmm. Check you out right now. Should have you teaching this. If he walks across here, that is a mid-segment, right? So if he walks that off and says, oh, that was 128 paces. So again, not drawn to scale, sorry. Then how far is it across the lake?
122. No.
Double the 128, right? So if we double that, 256. Now here's the deal. 256 what?
Yards.
We decide.
Those were paces, right? These were all, he was just pacing it off. So what would you say? One, like if I'm gonna walk,
That's a small
It's about
That's
right?
a small lake.
if I'm gonna do this, what do you think that
It's
is?
like a foot and a half.
Really?
No,
Think it's a foot and a half?
It's a
That's
suggestion.
I mean, if I just lay down, it's like 5 feet and 10 inches. So.
I mean, it can be whatever we think he paced it off as. I said one stride was 3 feet. Is that way too long?
5 to 10.
No, that's right.
He's a big dude. He's a big guy. So if he went 256 paces and one pace is 3 feet, then how many feet is this?
So what?
Oh, no. 256 times 3.
256 times 3 is 768 feet. So one trip across the lake is 768 feet. So if his coach said, go 2 miles, what would you do?
5 tomatoes.
5 tomatoes.
Times 2.
5,280 times 2. So 10,560 feet he has to swim.
So you should basically just swim there and back. Because you don't 5 tomatoes.
10,000. 10,000. So divide this by 768.
5 tomatoes.
He needs to go 13.75 times. That's a lot of trips across the lake. It's a pretty small lake.
So 5.
Questions on that? This is really all I wanted. How many paces? How many feet? Are we good?
Yeah.
That is all.